Today we will discuss your test 9. So first question is about examine the main challenges involved in looking after environmental concerns in world politics. ठीक है, तो I will start by your model answer. ठीक है, then I will try to add more points. So in your model answer there is a quote given by Robert Nisbet. ठीक है, it says that it is entirely possible that when the history of 20th century is finally written, the single most important social movement of the period will be just to be environmentalism. ठीक है, तो according to him history of 20th century means 1900s. ठीक, so right, so according to him environmentalism is the most important social movement of this time. This quote you can write which shows the importance of environmentalism. Correct. So let's move on further. So now this model answer says that green politics becomes an important international issues, at least in developed countries, during the time of 60s and 70s. Right, so Stockholm Convention was there, many other conventions came in 70s. ठीक है, and then there were countries who were using fossil fuels and increasing their economy. ठीक है, तो free riders were there. ठीक, and then developed countries try to transfer their polluting industries to the developing countries. So therefore, so third of the CO2 emission by the consumption of developed countries are actually emitted outside their borders. It means that they have outsourced their pollution. Right, so these points you can mention, and there is deeper division between the question of burden sharing on climate change. ठीक, so this issue is also there, and southern perspective of developing country is that developed country has used fossil fuel more, they have polluted more, so they have the historical responsibility to solve this issue, to stop using fossil fuel and providing the developing countries time and space and technology to cope with this challenge. ठीक है, so developing countries, they are badly affected and they have the fewest capabilities, so they are on the receiving end of this problem, and they have very few resources and technology to tackle this mitigation and adaptation problem. And there is also right based thinking in developing countries, which says that each human has equal right to the world's remaining carbon space. Sure, right, so they want to equally use the fossil fuel to develop their own capabilities, develop their own economy. Right, so this is the issue, and right to development. ठीक है, which north countries has already exercised. These developments need to be done in developing countries. They have to use fossil fuels and other fuels to develop their economy, to increase their energy consumption. So this is the problem today, and in conclusion you can mention that there can be sustainable development in line with the SDG 13, and the world can follow the Gandhian wisdom and Vedic traditions of nature worshipping and etc. to expand their sustainable living, sustainable development, lifestyle for climate change. Life movement was brought by Narendra Modi. Lifestyle for environment. So such kind of things can be adopted by everybody to to tackle the climate change issue. Then you can write about Vasudev Kutumbakam, that developed and developing countries should join hands and solve the issues. So what I have done here is I have given you the chronology of environmental movements, environmental incidents that happened in the past almost 100 years. ठीक है, तो this I have noted from the Globalization of World Politics book. So Rachel Carlson's publishes Silent Spring. So this was one of the most inspiring book which brought the idea of environmentalism to the forefront. ठीक है, then in 1972 Stockholm Exchange happened. ठीक है, तो there also environment become an important issue in international relations. Then sites came, then there was Bhopal gas tragedy in India, then there was Chernobyl disaster in 1886, then Brundtland Commission report in 1987, then 1992 was your Rio de Janeiro conference, and their Agenda 21, UNFCCC, CBD, biological diversity, the Convention on Biological Diversity emerged from Rio de Janeiro conference in 1992. Then WTO was founded 1995. Kyoto Protocol came in 1997. So all these you can use. In 15 Paris Climate Deal came, and many countries are using the word of climate emergency in their law. Suppose that UK recently used it, so you can mention the efforts of these countries. Okay, and what I have here written is that I try to introduce the answer in a different fashion. I have written here is environmental issues have moved from the margins to an increasingly central place on the international agenda. Okay, so I have given the role of globalization in environmental pollution and environmentalism. So because of the globalization, consumption increases. This lead to strain on earth carrying capacity, and this lead to global warming and pollution, etc. ठीक है, but at the same time globalization also facilitated the growth and transnational green politics and NGOs, ठीक है, non-state actors, which increase the environmental movements, and it also increased the public awareness. ठीक है, and it was successfully changing the political discourse. ठीक है, and you can mention the Nobel Prize winner, Nobel laureate Elinor Ostrom, who says that there is no need of state-led initiative on climate change. He called for decentralized initiative which was done by public voluntarily. ठीक है, so he called it polycentric governance. ठीक, where local initiatives and voluntary climate actions at all social level flourishes in the absence of global agreement. So he said that local initiative and voluntary climate action will flourish. ठीक है, and it will bring change done by the public only, and it will happen when there is absence of global agreements by the states. ठीक है, so this was his idea, and then you can, I have tried to incorporate the IR theory in environmental issue by saying that the neglect of environmental issue in traditional and realist IR theorizing theory is, you can write theory also, is exemplified in Morgenthau's famous text Politics Among Nations 1955. This was his book, which mentions the natural environment only as a fixed contextual factor or a constituent of national power. So he did not see the importance of environment, natural environment. He sees it merely a part of the sovereignty, part of the source to increase the national power. ठीक है, as a constituent of a national power. ठीक, he does not see it as important in IR. ठीक है, तो this was the lack of vision by the greatest thinker of IR theory. ठीक है, and I have mentioned another point that transnationally organized groups of scientists and policymakers often referred as epistemic community. So this keyword you can use, epistemic communities, have influenced the development of environmental governance. ठीक है, this line was said by P. Haas in 1990. ठीक है, तो you can use this quote or you can use this word also for the intellectuals who brought the environmental movements. ठीक है, this you can do. And there is also a concept of securitization of environment. This concept says that if you treat the environmental issue, climate change issue, as a security issue, then it will be more discussed in the IR scholars in the realm of state. ठीक है, so this is securitization of environment and it is a matter of debate also. ठीक, and what other challenges are there, that there is a problem of funding, that the funding that was promised by Paris climate deal of 100 billion a year is not yet fulfilled. ठीक है, and the developed countries are saying that this money will be funded by the western countries as well as the private sectors, but developing countries says that this was a promise done by the state only. ठीक है, not by the other means. ठीक, and what they have done is in consequent meetings that they have tried to paint India and China as a culprit, as a roadblock in the climate deals and other joint projects. ठीक है, this was done by the US and EU, and they are also playing the role of good cop bad cop. That EU shows that they are the good cop, they are bringing regulations etc, but US is playing the role of bad cop, that they are always threatening to leave the climate action deals. ठीक है, like they did during the Trump's time. ठीक, then there is issue of technology innovations, that renewable energy is still that not much efficient and not available to all, that technology of hydrogen fuel is still not scaled in developing countries. ठीक है, so development of developing countries, so if the developing countries do not use fossil fuel, then how will they develop? So this is one of the issue. ठीक है, then there is issue of climate refugees. ठीक है, then there is issue of adaptations and mitigations. All these requires funds, technology etc, which is not there in the developing world. ठीक है, so in this way you can write your answer. So let's move on to second question. It's about International Court of Justice. ठीक, so International Court of Justice, also known as World Court or ICJ, and it is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations, and it was adopted in 1945 under the Charter of United Nations. Actually, ICJ was called as Permanent Court of International Justice under the League of Nations. ठीक है, and later League of Nations become UN and PCIJ become ICJ. So this was the story. ठीक, and what is their work? They settle the legal dispute if the dispute is submitted to it by the states. ठीक है, and it gives advisory opinion to any legal questions referred to it by other UN organs. ठीक, so this is the work of ICJ, and what is the significance of ICJ is that they bring the idea of rule of law at international level. ठीक है, so this is the significance which I think is very good and should be written in every answers. ठीक है. And if you talk about their successes, then you have to mention that they have been able to solve the issues of territorial water, fishing rights, method of calculating the continental shelf beneath the sea, right? So all these things you can talk. And they have been able to solve the international disputes, like there was a dispute between El Salvador and Honduras, and they have solved it. So this is their success. This you can write. So Cameroon and Nigeria issue was also solved, settled in 2002, right? So this you can write. So Namibia got independence in 1989 from the South Africa. So this was also due to the influence of work of ICJ. So all these are the successes, but despite of these successes, it has several weaknesses. ठीक है. तो their jurisdiction is limited to the states. They are not able to judge on individuals, corporations, NGOs, non-state actors. They are not able to include them in the cases. ठीक है. So this is the issue, and other tribunals are there which sees these non-state actors also, like international criminal tribunals, then international criminal court. These are not under the umbrella responsibility of ICJ. So this is another weakness. ठीक. Right. And then second point is that they lacks compulsory jurisdiction, and state can uh, withdraw their commitments also, like USA withdraw from the ICJ jurisdiction when Nicaragua asked the ICJ to determine whether the mining of Nicaraguan harbors by the CIA constituted a violation of international law. So this was the story, and you can developing countries also criticize it because it represented the interest of Western states more, because in ICJ voting is done by UNGA and UNSC. So in UNSC there is domination of developed countries. So this is why they are being accused that they represent the Western countries more. ठीक. So this was the criticism by the developing countries. But however, after the end of Cold War, more diverse people, more diverse states are coming with their issues in ICJ, and cases being served by ICJ has been doubled. So there is this change occurring. So these things you can write. So what I have done is I have collected many points collected, and I have written here at one place. So ICJ or World Court, it was earlier Permanent Court of International Justice under League of Nations, which was adopted in United Nations. ठीक है. And it has only advisory nature because nations are sovereign. This is nation. ठीक है. And it is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. ठीक. And election in ICJ is done by UN General Assembly and UN Security Council both, and it has 15 judges, and they have the 9-year term, and 1/3 are elected every 3 years. ठीक है. And India has submitted itself to the compulsory jurisdiction in 1974, except in 2 cases. One is if there is a dispute with Commonwealth countries, as Pakistan is a Commonwealth country, so India did this. So India will not be under the compulsory jurisdiction in this case. And second is if there is situation of hostility, armed conflict, and issue of self-defense, then India will not be part of compulsory jurisdiction, and in 2002 there was this election when Dalvir Bhandari became the judge, and he defeated the UK's candidate there. Means UK candidate was not defeated, but he was opted out by the UK only. So this was a big win for India. So now let's move on to third question, that is about the low volume of trade in SAARC. So SAARC was established in 1985 under Dhaka Declaration. ठीक है. So let me write it again, it does not look very good. ठीक है. 1985 to represent the people of South Asia politically, economically. ठीक है. So this you can write, and this was done to make joint efforts to promote harmony, conviction and understanding among the South Asian states. ठीक है. So these things have been given in your model answer, and it is one of the weakest example of regional integration. And this quote you can write, that P.V. Rao termed its performance as a case of retarded regionalism. Retarded regionalism. ठीक है. So one reason I have given here is that there is a trust deficit issue between South Asian countries. ठीक है. So what will be the solution? So by social constructivist and liberal way, that there should be more talks, more communication which can solve this trust deficit issue. And as it has been observed under European Union and ASEAN that they meet many times. ठीक है. The European leaders meet many times in a year at different levels of meetings, and ASEAN leaders meets every year at summit level. So this is the this shows that communication works. ठीक है. So SAARC should adopt this too. Whereas earlier SAARC used to meet every 3 years, but today it has completely stopped because of the India-Pakistan relations. ठीक है. So there was this World Bank's report Glass Half Full, which says that the promise of regional trade in South Asia, intra-regional trade in South Asia is 1/3 $23 billion of its potential. Its potential is $67 billion and accounts for only 5 to 6% of South Asia's total trade. Means that whatever trade South Asia is doing with the whole world, of that only 5 to 6% trade is intra-regional between the South Asian countries. So this trade is very less. So this was the report by World Banks. ठीक है. So it is one of the least integrated region after the Middle East and Sub-Sahara. ठीक है. So this you can write. So and other reason are that there is different level of developments. A weaker country, a non-economic, if suppose some area is backward like Afghanistan, so they will not be able to buy, they will not be able to sell much of the stuffs. So this inequality also causes this low volume of trade. ठीक है. And despite of SAARC's agreement on trade in service, SAARC South Asian free trade agreements, these issues are there. So other issues are because of the complex non-tariff barrier, because of the poor infrastructure. ठीक है. And there is lack of connectivity. ठीक है. And there is lots of in SAFTA you will see that many quota are there, many baskets which are kept out of this free trade. ठीक है. That many products are there which are in the negative list you can say, and other word are also there instead of negative list which I am not remembering. So these lists facilitate that such some particular product will be out of the free trade, means that regular tariffs will be applied on the trade of those stuffs. So this lead to a barrier in free trade. So this lead to a lesser volume of trade between these country. And you will see that there was motor vehicle agreement between the Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, BBIN country, which has also become unsuccessful because Bhutan tried to bring environmental issues regarding the motor vehicles entry. Okay. And then there was World Investment Report was there, CTD was there, and FDI inflows in South Asia increased. It is significantly lesser compared to the East and Southeast Asia. So FDI is also less in these countries, whether from the foreign countries or whether from themselves only. So there is a way forward here, that it proposes that there should be a SARC investment treaty where these countries should come and bring a FDI investment policy in each other's country. Okay. And there is another way forward, that if SARC is consensus based organization, that every decision is taken by consensus, so this should be removed and qualified voting should be brought, so that decisions should be made. Consensus regularly stall the decisions, so it should be replaced by qualified votings. Okay. And in conclusion, what is given here is that South Asia is the fastest growing region in the world, and to sustain this growth there should be integration of South Asian market, which ensures free flow of goods, service and capital. So this is written as conclusion, and it has also linked it with the neighborhood first policy of the Indian government. Okay. So what I have written, tried to do here is that I have collected many quotes and many points and tried to give you some extra point here. Okay. So your external affairs minister as Jaishankar called SARC a jammed vehicle, and C Raja Mohan, CRM I have given here, but he is C Raja Mohan. He says that Pakistan is the camel in the caravan of SARC which slows down the traffic. So he wants to say that Pakistan is the culprit. Okay. And I have talked about the origin of SARC, that it was itself very controversial because it was a brainchild of the Ziaur Rahman, who was the military ruler of the Bangladesh in 1981, and he formed a SARC to tackle the rise of India only. So many scholars blame that SARC was built only against the concept of India. So this was the issue also. And SARC's, if you talk about SARC's objective, it's about peace and prosperity, to follow the principle of Panchashil, and to make decision on consensus basis. So all these points you can write in objective of SARC. So if you can see SARC, there is not a whole gloomy picture. You can say that glass is half empty and glass is half full. So both side picture is there. So if you see that, if you want to see the problems, then there is not much achievement as comparable to EU or ASEAN. There is stagnation in trade. Okay. South Asian community is unthinkable, and there is absence of will also. Okay. So India-Pakistan relation has become the Bangkok's ghost for the SARC. Okay. Glass is half full. If you want to see the positives, then SAFTA has been signed. There is SARC satellite. There is SARC university. There is SARC food bank. There is SARC film festival. There is SARC milk grid. Then there is SARC South Asian agency for disaster. Okay. So many successes are also there which you can write. And many scholars blame India that it has the attitude of big brother, bullying big brother, and India is like an imperialist power. So India is an imperialist power, and some blame say that India lacks soft power, and some says that India is building soft power. So if you talk about the soft power of India, then you can say that India brought the COVID fund, India gave the vaccines, satellites, knowledge network, and India provided the line of credits to Bangladesh. ठीक है, मतलब mainly to the Bangladesh. So these are the soft power of India, and it shifted towards the BIMSTEC. ठीक है, India has shifted towards the BIMSTEC, and India thinks SARC minus Pakistan idea. So these are the negatives which are attributed to India. And if you talk about the PM Modi's lines, what he has said, you can say that Modi once said that let's fight common enemy, that is poverty, hunger and terrorism. ठीक है, so he wants to cooperate between SARC countries. He want to see the SARC countries compete to eliminate poverty, hunger and terrorism. ठीक है, and he also said that full potential of SARC can only be realized in atmosphere free of terror and violence. ठीक, and in conclusion you can write that SARC is not a choice but necessity for meaningful regional cooperation in South Asia. ठीक है, in this way you can conclude your answer. So let's move on to the ongoing crisis in multilateralism. How do you visualize the future prospect of WTO, current challenges of WTO? So multilateralism is basically where all countries come, like UN, WTO. ठीक है, so these two institute represents the example of multilateralism. ठीक, IMF, World Bank is also there. ठीक है, so if you see the WTO, it was formed in 1995 to replace the GATT. ठीक, and it represents the three pillars of liberal international economic order represented by the Bretton Woods system. So when the world became unipolar and liberal world order was seen as the champion ideological way of life, then in this US took the lead and US brought the WTO concept. ठीक है, so all these you can write, and it was linked to the triumph of neoliberalism and globalization, and objective was to facilitate free and fair trade. ठीक, and globalization has brought people closer to the end of geography. All these things you can write. ठीक है, WTO has been the cornerstone of multilateral rule-based global trading system since the inception of globalization. However, today it is facing make or break moment. Even before pandemic, the three key organization functions are, ठीक है, right, forum for negotiations to establish free and fair trade. First point is this. Second is that WTO was doing the work of monitoring trade, and third point was dispute resolutions. ठीक है, so all these points WTO used to do. So I have given the points here that WTO represents the 98% of the global trade flow. So this shows the importance and relevance of the WTO. And average value of tariffs that was imposed on the trades are reduced by 85% since 1942. So this is the success of WTO. And all these you can mention in your introduction, or if you want to add facts to it. ठीक है, and nowadays US and EU are losing interest in multilateral platforms. ठीक है, because there is tough competition by the developing countries, by China, by India, and then there is thinking developing in Western society that they are facing the brunt of neoliberal globalization. because all the manufacturing is done by the developing countries and they are suffering, they are losing jobs. Okay, so all this lead to cracks in the core liberal countries. So it lead to increasing protectionism, America first policy. Okay, so developed countries are becoming more conservatives and they are becoming intolerant towards the developing countries. You can always give the example of the 11th ministerial conference of 2017 when there was no outcome came and there was a deadlock between the developing and developed countries. ठीक है, this you can mention. And you can also tell that US and EU started supporting Japan's attempt to legitimize plurilateral negotiations on digital trade. Means few countries of the WTO will negotiate where so US and EU are supporting Japan's attempt to legitimize the informal plurilateral negotiations on digital trade. Means that they want to go ahead without taking the whole consensus of all the countries of the WTO. ठीक है, so this is the issue. And authoritarian countries are also hell bent to undermine the multilateral orders, like the assertiveness of China and Russia. They want to reshape the multilateral principles. ठीक है, and US also blame the China's unfair trade policies and there is a major controversy on the Doha development round, which is on the agricultural agreement. ठीक है, and all these issues you can mention in your answer. And then there is Biden administration on which there is a scholar Mark Linsert, ठीक है, from the Atlantic Council. He says that his trade policies will not be a radical departure from the Trump's administration. So US will continue to follow this trade policy. ठीक, and US has tried to apply the maximum pressure strategy during the Trump's era. Means they will continue with their trade wars with the China and they will continue to paralyze the WTO system by not allowing the selection of judges in the appellate body. ठीक, so all these issues are there. So what is the solution? Only reforming the WTO and by multifaceted approach by win-win situation will only help, because today's WTO and other UN bodies are the representation of the post World War II order, but today there is a rise of India, China and other countries, so there should be much more broader consensus, and this requires a multifaceted approach, a very win-win situation and a good negotiations to reform these institutions to make them functional. So I have tried to give you extra information here that WTO was established under the Marrakesh Treaty. Marrakesh is in Morocco after the Uruguay round of 1995, and it is based on the liberal institutionalism and which says that their interdependence will develop, complex interdependence will develop, which will lead to peace and prosperity. And it is also based on the Ricardo's model of comparative advantage. Ricardo's model is that if you are good in making one product, then focus on that product only and export it to the world, and by that money you can buy other products, ठीक है, which other countries are exporting. So this is the principle on which WTO works, and the challenges are very clear that there is a trade war challenge between US and China. Decision making is a consensus based, so it lead to stalling of key negotiations, and And there is a most favored nations principle. So this is also becoming problematic, and the status of developing and developed country are voluntary. So this lead to controversy as well, and developed countries alleges on developing countries that they flout the TRIPS norms. ठीक है, suppose generic medicine issue is there, compulsory licensing issue is there. So all this lead to the flouting of the TRIPS norms. And then US blocks the appointment of appellate body judges. ठीक है, so this is another big issue. And what is the way ahead? Wait. And then there is issue of service related trade, and as service forms the 2/3 of the global GDP, global agreement on trade and trade in services needs to be more open and transparent. So this law need to be GATS law needs to be more open and transparent. ठीक है, and all countries must follow the rule based trading order. There should be no unilateral sanctions. There should be no restrictions on the domestic market for the foreign players. India advocate for the rule based, transparent, non discriminatory, equitable, open and inclusive trading. So all these points you can write in your answer. ठीक है. So next question is about the 3 generation of human rights. So you can write that Carl Weizsäck in 1977 gave the concept of 3 generation of human rights. ठीक है, so this point is there, and you can define human rights are the rights to which people are entitled by the virtue of being human. ठीक है, they are modern and secular version of natural rights. So here it is written that Andrew Haywood has says this, and I have read in other book that Thomas Paine in Right of Man book has also given this definition. So you can use the name of a scholars you want. Then there is 4 characteristics which are attributed to human rights, that they are universal, fundamental, absolute, indivisible. ठीक है, तो all these definitions are here. ठीक, and then you can quote James Nichol, which I have given you, that human rights are non-negotiable ingredient of human identity. They are universal, fundamental and absolute. So all these points you can mention, and the 3 generation are here. First generation is civil and political rights, which was developed during the French and American Revolution. ठीक है, and these are negative rights because it limits the power of state. It provides right to life, liberty and property to the people. Second generation is economic, social and cultural rights. These come from more socialistic idea that there should be right to work, right to healthcare, right to education, right to social security. So this required positive rights because state has to perform this duty, state has to provide welfare provisions. ठीक है. Third generation is about collective rights, that is the solidarity rights. ठीक है, तो it emerged post 1945, and examples of global south, right to self determination, right to development, right to peace, all these are the examples of such rights. ठीक, so what is the relation among these rights? There is no hierarchy, all are equal. ठीक है, and you can mention these points that the underlying theme of 3 generation, fraternity, liberty, equality, are the notions of a happy life which cannot be taken from each other. ठीक है, liberty cannot be diverse from equality, equality cannot be diverse from liberty, nor can liberty and equality be diverse from the fraternity. So this point you can write. And there is another point of Asian values. So Asian values idea was propounded by Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore and Mahathir Mohamad of Malaysia. They all says that human rights. So they says that human rights are the एग्जाम्पल ऑफ कल्चरल imperialism, they are imposed by the western developed countries. ठीक है. And these scholars says that Asian values are more communitarian. ठीक है. Family oriented, they are more about discipline than liberty. ठीक है. All these points were there. So Asian value is criticized by the developed countries, by the western countries, because they may advocate the double standard which justify the mass violation of human rights. ठीक है. And they says that these are on behalf of the attempts by the authoritarian and illiberal rule. ठीक है. And feminist criticize this because it is an attempt to legitimate gender, class, ethnic and racial hierarchies embedded in Asian cultures. However, Asian values are defended by the Daniel Abel, who argue that many values in Asia as opposed to Asian values can both enrich global human rights theory and practices to be developed practices and be deployed to improve the dignity as well as being of contemporary Asians. ठीक है. So this you can write, and I have given is that Amartya Sen in Argumentative Indian Book says that Asian values are a mask for ensuring totalitarian regime in Asian countries. ठीक है. तो this criticism by Amartya Sen can be written. And in conclusion, you can say that rights should be given preference over any other consideration, including community interest or state's interest. So this was propounded by Dworkin in his book Taking Rights Seriously, and in this book he also says that rights are trumps. ठीक है. So this actually means this whole line that rights should be given preference. So this is the definition of rights that you can use in your conclusion also. ठीक. And in the sixth question you can write that explain the success of ASEAN as a regional organization. What can SAARC learn from the ASEAN? ठीक. तो ASEAN, as we know that it is a grouping of 10 member countries: Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. ठीक है. तो this was done during the ASEAN was formed by Bangkok Declaration. ठीक है. Bangkok Declaration. ठीक. And here you can mention Kishore Mehbubani, who wrote the book Asian Miracle. ठीक है. He was the former Singaporean ambassador to the UN, and he says that when ASEAN was born on 1967, it was destined to fail, and reasons are because there were 4 major religions. ठीक है. 800 languages, innumerable ethnicity. There was radically diverging political systems, but the success of ASEAN is huge because of this only, because there were so many weaknesses, but despite of these weaknesses ASEAN succeed. ठीक है. तो all these points you can write. So you can compare it with the SAARC, that SAARC was established in 1985 with the similar goal, but because of the political atmosphere and the mistrust between these countries, it could not succeed. ठीक है. And ASEAN given a fillip to the regional integration and economic development, which has not been seen in SAARC. ठीक. And what learnings can be drawn? That ASEAN lead to the seamless connectivity. This is not there in SAARC. ठीक है. And this boosted the intra-regional trade in ASEAN countries, and it promoted the region as tourist destination. This has also helped. ठीक है. And there was I have given extra point here that there was common threat perception among ASEAN countries of communism, which lead to increase in ASEAN build-up, and there was external support by the US, and it also played a major role, which was not there in SARC. ठीक है, तो there was advantage to ASEAN, so they succeed faster. ठीक है, and there is that SARC has lackadaisical attitude towards the connectivity infrastructure build-up. ठीक है, and there is example that visa exemption schemes are only given to handful of entities and players like sportsmen, businessmen, parliamentarians, and these are not there for common people. So this lead to continuing lack of trust. ठीक है, and then there is a second point that ASEAN has been able to successfully solve the disputes very fastly. ठीक है, very swiftly. So this lead to resolution on tensions. ठीक है, like North Borneo dispute, all these solved by peaceful mechanisms, whereas SARC failed in these things. Like Kashmir issue is still continuing, and there are many terrorist activities by non-state actors, proxy wars are always going. ठीक है, so this is the success of ASEAN and failure of SARC, and ASEAN has shown rapid growth in trade. ठीक है, so this is also there, and despite a motor vehicle agreement, South Asian free trade agreement, ASEAN has failed. ठीक है, and these security issue in SARC countries is more complex, like these terrorist activities, non-state actors. Then there is Afghanistan issue where world powers have come to fight the war. So this is all the more dire situation in SARC. So because of the security issue, resources are also diverted in the security, which lead to less in focus of developmental activities. ठीक है, and here it is mentioned that US has pushed SARC. So this is okay. So this lead to way forward that bigger countries like China should be added to SARC to give it more support. ठीक है, what lessons can we learn? These are the lessons are collected in these points: mandates, cooperation, trade, connectivity. So same points are repeated here, and then in conclusion you can write that, not in conclusion but another quote, that one big lesson from ASEAN is that having a regular meeting makes a huge difference. ठीक है, interest level. So regular meeting is good for the growth of regional cooperation. So ASEAN was formed in 1967 in Bangkok Declaration. SARC was formed in 1985 in Dhaka Declaration. ठीक है, Kishore Mehbubani in his book ASEAN Miracles says that ASEAN is an example of pragmatic regionalism. So all these points can be added, and SARC ASEAN has been able to emerge as security community. ठीक है, this which is a sociological liberalism concept, which is having a high level of trust among its member nation. ठीक है, ASEAN is a central pillar of India's Act East and India's Indo-Pacific policy, and forms a part of India's extended neighborhood. If you have to write anything related to India, you can add these points. ठीक है, add these keywords: extended neighborhood, central pillar of Act East, involved in Indo-Pacific policy. So all these points you can write. And if you talk about the strategic partnership between India and ASEAN, which was done in 2012, and there is 30 dialogue mechanism between India and ASEAN. There is free trade agreement between India and ASEAN, and target is of 200 billion by 2022, and 20% of Indian diaspora lives in ASEAN, and India wants to develop its northeast by connectivity with the ASEAN countries. ठीक है, so all these you can write. And if you want to write any conclusion on ASEAN, then you can write that from Balkans of the Orient, which was said by the Charles Fisher, ASEAN has emerged as an example of successful cooperative regionalism for the third world countries. And how is ASEAN different from the other regional forums? So, ASEAN has the ASEAN Way policy, which is about non-interference in domestic affairs. There is intergovernmentalism rather than supranationalism. ठीक है, तो means that it focus on least institutionalization, and supranationalism institutionalization is the feature of European Union, and it is consensus based. ठीक है, तो these ideas were very innovative and sui generis, which makes ASEAN very unique. So successes of ASEAN, you can talk about the nuclear weapon free zone. These are the large growing economies. They have become security community. They have been able to successfully bring peace, prosperity, protection of human rights to their land. And what is the challenges? Rising China is the challenge. South China Sea has becoming more militarized. ठीक है, there is Rohingya issue, which is a human rights violation issue, and then there is economic disparity, inequality issue is there, regional imbalances is there. So all this can be written in challenges of the ASEAN. So I have here talked about that world was bipolar, and India was more friendly to USSR. But when the world became unipolar, India wanted to cooperate with US, so India made the policy of look east, and started become more friendlier towards the allies of the US. So all these things are there, and India has 3C cooperation with ASEAN: commerce, culture, and connectivity. So all these points can be written. So your test 9 discussion is complete. So thank you for your time. Have a good day.